I'll show you the steps that I went through to achieve the design. I'm going to create a lighthouse image with the rays emanating from behind. Now to do this, I'm going to start off with a 3-inch diameter circle. I'll select my ellipse tool, holding down the Control plus Shift key. I'll go out to about 3-inch size. We can see on the interactive property bar, so long as my aspects are locked, I'll simply type in 3 inches and hit enter. Next, from the freehand drawing tool, I'm going to select freehand. I'll do a single click straight across, holding the Control key down to constrain that. I'm going to left click to end off that line. I want to make sure that this is perfectly centered on that ellipse, so I'm going to select my pick tool. I'll marquee select these two, and if you remember, C for center, E for even, and that's now made sure that this is perfectly horizontal right across that line. Now before duplicating this element, I'll need to make sure that my duplicate distance is set to 0, 0, and I can see with nothing selected, on the interactive property bar, I do have 0, 0 set here, so that's what I want. I'll select my line, I'll do a Control D to duplicate that, and without deselecting this line, on my angle of rotation, I'm going to set a value of 12 degrees in here, and hit enter. Smart Duplicate will remember this, so I'm going to hit Smart Duplicate 13 times, and there you have it. Next, on the toolbox, I'm going to select my Smart Fill tool, and from the interactive property bar at the top, I'm going to change the color. I'll select RGB for this, and I'm going to use a color value of 255, 204, 0. So type in 255, 204, and 0. Next, I want to go to the outline, and I'm going to select no outline. And now it's just a matter of selecting every second void to create the rays. Now I'm going to remove the lines that I used to create those objects. Under the pick tool, you remember the freehand pick tool, I'll select that, and I can draw an irregular shaped line, holding the Alt key down. Anything the marquee touches will be selected. I can select my ellipse now and delete that. Go back to my regular pick tool, and I'm just going to move this down a little bit. And let's zoom in a little bit so that we can work on it. The next thing we want to do is create the rectangle, which will become the base for our lighthouse. We want a rectangle that is 0.5 inches by 1.3. Simply draw the rectangle, and on the interactive property bar, I want to make sure that this is unlocked. I want this at 0.5, and my height is 1.3. I'm going to change my outline weight to hairline. We'll remove the hairline once we've got this all built. Before moving this into position, I'm going to marquee select the rays, and I'll group those together with a Control G. Now I can select my base, Shift, select the rays, C for center, B for bottom. That's now put that properly in position for me. I'm going to create another rectangle that is 0.5 inches by 0.125. So I can easily duplicate this one, and I can base it on this if I wanted to, 0.5 by 0.125, and this will go on top. And then a third rectangle of 0.25 by 0.25. I'll lock this and just type in a value 0.25, hit enter. I'm going to change my outline, and we'll position this on the top. Now, I'm going to marquee select these three elements. I'll hold my Shift key down, select the rays, and C for center, and that's ensured that these are all centered up here. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this element. I'll convert this to curves, so Object, Convert to Curves. That then allows me to take the nodes and actually change the shape or move the nodes in. So I'm going to hold the Control key down, and I'm going to move the nodes in to this position. I'll need to move this up just a bit, and we can actually leave the top one as is. Now for this top one, that becomes the light on the top of the lighthouse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my Shape tool. You'll notice that when I pull in these, they all go in at the same time. In my interactive property bar, I'm going to undo the lock. I'll set this to 25, and this one to 25. And there you have it. And one final step for the logo. I'm going to take this element, I'll duplicate this, select this object here, and tap B for bottom. This then becomes the door. I want to make this twice the height. I will unlock this, and I'm simply going to type in ×2. That now has become the door. So again, put this back into position simply by tapping the letter B. Now it's time to color the elements. This object gets a black fill. These elements here, I'll select both of those. Left click on the white to give it a fill. Right click on the X to remove the outline. And the element at the top, I want to right click to remove the outline and left click to give it a fill. The final thing I'm going to do is I want to select my rays. If I hold the Control key down and click on any color in my color palette, it's actually going to add 10% of that color. So I'm going to do a couple clicks on the red, and I've now effectively added 10% to that value that was already there. Now the final step for this logo is simply to put the name on the bottom of it. I'll grab my text tool, left click, and it's Lighthouse Electric. I'll hit the drop down, and I'm going to select a font. In here, I'm going to select Magneto. By chance you don't have it, just go ahead and use whichever font you feel comfortable with. Let me just position this. I'll make it a little bit smaller. And here's a trick. If I select the lighthouse, I can see that this is 3 inches across. I can select my text, and I can make my text 3 inches across as well. I want to make sure that I lock that so I'm not skewing or stretching the text. I'll simply type in 3 inches, select this, and then C for center. And there we have our completed logo.